One thing before I get into the meat of this video, because it does affect some of the things I'm about to say here. The Green Bay Packers earlier today announced the hiring of a new GM to replace Ted Thompson, and the person that they announced was not named John Schneider. So, whatever I may say in this video, whatever I might get into, whatever I might be a little bitter or salty or complain about or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It looks like John Schneider is going to be our general manager for at least one more year. Green Bay was the team that was looking to poach him. They're out. So basically, John Schneider is the guy for one more year at the least. So, breathe a sigh of relief, feel good about it, celebrate, or maybe get angry about it. Maybe you'll be a little angry about it after I'm done with this video, because my last video was the 2010 to 2012 drafts that we had. Those draft classes, pure gold. Today, I'm here to talk about the other side of that coin, the 5 years since then, because I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. This is some ugly stuff. As much as those three draft classes built the Seahawks, these draft classes they've broken the Seahawks to the point they are the team that you saw this year that limped their way to 9 wins, missed the playoffs, and wasn't able to participate on a pretty fun wild card weekend. So let's go ahead and just get right into it. I'm pulling out the whiteboard once again, sharing the screen, and as you can see, I have portrayed our last 5 draft classes. This is the sum of our last 5 drafts, 2013 to 2017. Let's run it through here real quick. Okay, 2013. This is a disaster, guys. Luke Wilson is by far the most impactful player we got from this draft class. Luke Wilson has been a tight end on the Seahawks for the last 5 years. He's been injured a couple times. He's been the backup for a good chunk of this period. He's been a starter for some of it. I think he averages like a catch and a half a game. He catches some touchdowns. He's made a couple big plays in the playoffs. He blocks okay. His hands have been mostly, toasters. Very mediocre, league average tight end. You're okay with having him around. You'd rather have him around than some dude off the street. But this is me at my most generous, by the way, giving him this orange color, which, I kind of used to signify somebody who had a positive impact on the team, but, was never a Pro Bowler. This is me being very generous. Luke Wilson was probably about a league average, maybe slightly better than that tight end for the last 5 years. That is the cream of the crop of the 2013 draft. This draft class was Christine Michael, who had a few good games as a Seahawk over the last few years, but otherwise was a bust. This was a Jordan Hill, who looked like a monster for the last half of the 2014 season. Then we never heard from him again. He couldn't get healthy. Thorold Simon, who had a couple good games at the end of the 2014 season, but then he fell off a cliff, and then he got hurt, and he never got healthy, and that whole draft class is a wasteland, and there is a chance Luke Wilson will not be a Seahawk next year, and that whole 2013 draft class is going to be a big fat wasteland that didn't help us really win anything, except maybe you could say that Luke Wilson put in some good snaps at tight end over the last 5 years. That's the best you can say. And that's me being nice. 2014, not much better, because as you can see, I have again been very generous. When I'm judging the 2010 to 2014 drafts, I have to be stingy. I have to have high expectations. I hold the players to a high standard. I don't have to do that here, guys. I mean, I can give Justin Britt the orange, which is to signify a player who's been, a positive contributor, even though Justin Britt was terrible his first 2 years here. We moved him to tackle, we moved him to guard. He was awful. And then we moved him to center last year, and he was really good. And he played center again this year, and he was good, but he definitely wasn't as good as he was last year. So I don't really know what we got, but he can play on the offensive line. He's frequently the only guy who looks competent on the offensive line, so I'll give him the orange, but I don't feel good about it. I feel even less good about giving it to Paul Richardson, who clearly has talent, guys. Paul Richardson, he's fast. Most of the time he has good hands. He can run a lot of different routes. He does a lot of positive things as a receiver. Injury, injury, injury. I mean, he was playing good his rookie season, got hurt. Next year, missed the whole season, basically. And starting late last season and going into the season that just happened, he gave us a lot of good stuff. He did. He's clearly talented. Probably not going to be a Seahawk after this year. So I gave him some credit for making a positive contribution on late last season plus this season. But, guys, you don't want to get like a year and a half of good contributions from a second-round pick before he leaves. So even this is me being very, very nice. And, you know, it's not totally his fault. It's not totally our fault. He kept getting hurt, but not really the kind of impact you want to get out of your second-round pick. It's okay. You can deal with it. So those are two draft classes that are going to really, really hurt your team going forward. Moving on, 2015. As you can see, things get a little better. We have 3 years now to judge this draft class, and we can safely say that Frank Clark and Tyler Lockett are going to be a part of this team going forward, whether or not we, you know, we might lose them in free agency in next year. Next year could be their last year with the team, but they are clearly great players that have a big impact on the team. And Clark heads the list. He was good as a backup his first year, and then the last 2 years he's played around Pro Bowl level. Maybe he's not quite there yet, but he's very close. Frank Clark, really, really good defensive end. I hope we can keep him around, but he is going to get paid. Frank Clark is going to get freaking paid. That is for goddamn sure. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Tyler Lockett, rookie season, awesome. Second year, awesome. He broke his leg. He was not the impact player that we wanted him to be this year, but we know the talent's there, and we saw signs that he might be springing to life next season. So I'm going to give him the purple or the blue or whatever color that may be. I'm going to give him a little bit of a break. I'm going to say that was a good, solid draft pick. Even this most recent season where he was playing, coming off that major leg injury, he still made the All-Pro team as a kick returner, which is kind of weird to those of us who watch the games, but I think we should take that as a sign that the rest of the league has the same kick return problems that we do. So yeah, those two guys, good picks. Thomas Rawls, I gave him the orange only because he gave us about a season's worth of games. You know, if you add it all up over the course of his stay in Seattle, you can probably find 15 to 16 games where he looked like one of the best running backs in football. You know, he was averaging 6 yards a carry. He was destructive. Unfortunately, for the rest of that time, he's either been hurt or playing like absolute dog shit. So I can't leave him out because he was so good for, probably about 15 total games. But at the end of the day, he was an undrafted free agent. It was good value, but he's not really going to be part of the team going forward. So 2016, again, this one is kind of weird. Because, these guys, we've only seen them play 2 years. So I have to judge based off projection. I have to judge based off of assumptions. I have to judge based off what I've seen with the eye test and how that looks going forward. So you might disagree with some of the evaluations I've made for the 2016 draft class, but I believe Jarron Reed has star potential. I believe he's going to be a very, very good starter for us for as long as he's here. I think he's a surprisingly good pass rusher. I think he's great against the run. And I think that was a great pick. George Fant and Quentin Jefferson, I am judging purely off of their potential. I have to say that George Fant has given us, probably 8 to 10 games of below average left tackle play, but he was the best that we had. And unfortunately, his leg got shredded. But it seems like he's going to be part of the future plans. He might play right tackle next year, as an example. He might replace Affetti. He might replace... he's the heir apparent to Dwayne Brown when Dwayne Brown decides he's had enough of the NFL. So George Fant, probably generous to give him the orange, but I went ahead and did it because given what we gave up to get a guy like George Fant, he's produced much more than we could have ever expected. Quentin Jefferson, too. I like what I see from him. I know he hasn't produced a lot yet in the NFL, but we're projecting here. These guys have only been in the league 2 years, so I went ahead and gave him the orange because I'm optimistic on him. I'm going to say that was a good pick. And then I listed Germain Ifedi here in black, you may notice, which is the only player I've done that for on this whole list because, look, Germain Ifedi started every game since he got here, I think. He's played in a lot of games. He's played a lot of snaps. I cannot talk about the 2016 draft without mentioning Germain Ifedi and all the snaps he has given us. But he has looked so freaking awful over those snaps. He's been one of the worst tackles and worst guards in the league. Whatever he does, he's terrible. I cannot possibly say that he's been even a positive impact on this team. So he's a snap eater. He plays and he sucks, but he's better than I would be out there. So, you can't throw that away, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. Not yet. It sounds like we're going to give him another year, so let's just hope things work out. All right, 2017. Now we really have to project. These guys have only played 1 year, so I'm just going to make assumptions based on what I've seen. Shaquille Griffin and Nazir Jones are future starters in this league. Very, very good starters. Shaquille Griffin showed me a lot of potential his rookie year. All he needs to do now is get a better nose for the ball, a better nose for forcing turnovers. He had a pick in the last game of the year, which was great to see. We need to see more of that. We need to see more ball skills because he's doing everything else good. Nazir Jones, I think he's going to be a very good starter for us going forward. I'm high on him. And then you have Ethan Posick, who showed me something as a rookie, but he certainly wasn't very good. So it's mostly just potential and the belief that he will get stronger. And then you have Chris Carson, who played 4 good games for the Seahawks, showed that he was clearly the best running back on the team, and then he broke his leg, and we'll see you next year. So this is what we've gotten. None of these guys look like future Hall of Fame type talents, or even close. 5 of these guys, or excuse me, 2 of these guys have shown they can play around a Pro Bowl level. 3 of them seem like they might be headed that way. And everyone else is just a reasonable positive contributor. This is the main reason why the Seahawks are in the situation that they're in right now. You can talk about Jimmy Graham wasn't what he was supposed to be. You can talk about Percy Harvin. You can talk about Dwayne Brown or Sheldon Richardson or whatever trade you don't like or whatever coaching decision you don't like or whatever. This is all you really need to know because as you can see, take a look at the position chart. Offensively, we found a stud wide receiver, and he's also a stud, kick and punt returner. Hopefully he'll be getting back to that next year anyway. And then you're talking about, well, we got a receiver who's okay, got a tight end who's okay, we got some offensive linemen who are okay, we got an offensive lineman who sucks, but maybe we got a couple running backs who did some decent things, and you're looking at all this and you're like, this isn't good enough. Like, when I was evaluating the 2010, 2011, and 2012 drafts, the orange players were just filling in gaps around, Pro Bowl, Hall of Fame type talent. Here, the players I marked in orange are making up the foundation. And that's a big problem. Not only are there fewer good players, but the players who are good are not nearly as good. And because of this, you go like, okay, well, we have a left tackle who's okay, but let's get better. Let's go give up draft assets to get Dwayne Brown. Hey, we got a tight end. He's okay. Let's go out and trade for Jimmy Graham. Let's give up some draft assets and player assets for Jimmy Graham because, we got to get better. The draft pick we made didn't produce a star. We have to give up other assets to get a star. And then on defense, we did well on the defensive line. We got a bunch of good defensive linemen, which, is good. That's not a small thing. And we got one, seems like a stud cornerback, but, we didn't fill the back end of the defense at all. There's no linebacker depth, which doesn't help when a dude like Bobby Wagner or KJ Wright gets hurt. And we really saw that at a couple points this season. We didn't get much, cornerback depth. Luckily, we hit with Shaquille Griffin, which helped push back that problem a little bit. And basically, because we're not hitting home runs and we're not even hitting doubles, the team has just disintegrated to the point where they missed the playoffs. So this is the story. And the point I'm trying to make here with those 2 charts that I've made over the last week, we know that John Schneider is going to stick around for 1 more year. And you can judge him by this. You can judge him by the chart I made last week. Whatever you want to do. This isn't good enough. And Schneider needs to own this. And he needs to show us something because these draft classes are going to be remembered for the failures much more than the successes. We're going to remember 2013 for Christian Michael. 2016 is looking like it's going to be a disaster because of the Jermaine Ifedi experiment going so poorly. 2017, guys, who knows if Malik McDonald is ever going to play football for the Seahawks in his life. So we got to wonder about our GM, because one guy commented on my previous video, and he said this, and I agree with him. When the 2012 offseason was over, we lost, I'm probably going to mispronounce his name, but Scot McCloughan. He went to the Redskins. And ever since we've lost Scott, our drafts went from what they were to this. And there has to be some kind of connection there. It's tough for me to believe in coincidences. So basically, maybe John Snyder is not the golden god that we sometimes think he is, because this tells a very compelling story. This is why we're active in free agency. This is why we're active in trades. This is why we're trading draft picks to get good players. And I know the reason that some of these drafts are so dry is because we traded first-round and second-round picks, but we're still not hitting the way that we did over that 3-year span. And there are a ton of reasons for that, but even if you don't judge these drafts off the 2010 to 2012 standard, these are bad drafts. No Hall of Fame type talents over 5 years. Very, very thin, Pro Bowl, All-Star type talent. Just a bunch of decent players who can fill their role, and that's not good enough, guys. Luke Wilson is not the kind of tight end that can, put you over the top. That's why we traded for Jimmy Graham. George Fant is not a left tackle that's going to help you win games. He might be barely good enough to make you not lose games. That's why we traded for Dwayne Brown. All right, this video's been long, but we had a lot to talk about, guys, because we're headed into a off season with a lot of questions, and this right here should have every Seahawks fan thinking, do the guys in charge of this team really know what they're doing? Because these draft classes tell me probably not. It's gotten a little better since, the 2013, 2014, and I guess you could say 2015 drafts, maybe. But again, I had to be generous to get this far. I had to be generous to give these guys good grades. I had to be generous to give Paul Richardson orange. He probably doesn't deserve it. So we need to start evaluating John Snyder on what he does next, because what he has done over the last 5 years, it's not great. And every move he makes will be met with skepticism from me. And if you're a Seahawks fan, it should be from you as well. All right. I don't know when my next video is going to be, but it sounds like there's not going to be any big Seahawks news for a while, so might not be for a bit. But just digest everything that I just said and think about how you feel about our general manager and front office going forward. See you guys later.